we have the next item on our agenda is to discuss the proposed MOU.
Do we have a copy of it? Yeah, we need copies of it, please.
I had sent some to you overnight.
Yeah, you did, and I didn't get a chance to read
Well, Wellfleet, I was listening to Beethoven's Ninth
I know, I was
Symphony,
thinking
and
of you actually, because I was going to go to that.
totally, completely different thing
I'm
to
sure
do.
it was beautiful.
It was. It was
Yeah, I saw that
absolutely
advertised, and I
beautiful.
would have loved to have gone, but
November 5th.
Stephen Simon, the Simon Sinfonietta, and the orchestra, and the Chatham Chorale, and the Falmouth Chorale.
it must have been
And the
fantastic.
Falmouth Academy Chorale. There must have been
Oh, that music.
200 people singing.
Yeah.
It was absolutely ode to joy. You know, it was really absolutely amazing.
Yep, I regret it I wasn't there for that.
Ode to joy.
Ode to joy.
Wonderful. I always think of clockwork chorus whenever I hear it.
The cultural piece.
Thank you.
Are those both of them?
Now, is this the Chambers one, or is this the EDC?
This is the,
That's the EDC.
Oh, good.
I didn't think you were considering the change.
no,
No,
there's a little,
All right, so I take it that as we discuss this, you've decided, as far as review goes, the Chamber of Commerce did give us a suggested MOU, and we have this one. So, what's your intent at this point?
well, I think the whole idea with this, there is funding from the state, and it's called WEDO, Regional Economic Development. I don't know what the O stands for. Organization. And we're not really sure what the source of that funding is, or whether it's even going to be available after this fiscal year. But the Chamber receives some of that funding to work on regional projects. And of course, they receive license plate money, the same amount that we receive, even though their monies are geared very much toward tourism, and which is what they're all about. And ours are the money that comes to the county. We ask the EDC, the Cape Cod Economic Development Council, which is an advisory group to us, to recommend to us how that money should be used. And it's been in the past used mostly for grants, but then it's been used recently as part of the SEDS project. So I think what the Cape Cod Economic Development Council, Inc., which is the Chamber's version of the EDC, would like to collaborate with the EDC on the county side and work together on certain projects, which not necessarily related to tourism, but more related to the Cape as a whole. And they came forward with an MOU, and the EDC took a look at the MOU and said, yeah, we like the idea, and we want to collaborate with you. So they came up with a revised version. And I think what the Chamber is looking for is for us, after a review, to send it back to them and let them take a look at it, and then hopefully we'll come up with a document that we can both work from.
well, another, and this is another example of collaboration, which is being encouraged by the state, as stated by the, everything is going to be about collaboration. And so this is the request that these two work together in this effort, and I think...
And it's not new, because if you remember, we agreed, or the EDC agreed, to take and we supported that through our vote, $100,000 from the license plate money that we contribute to Coastal Community Capital, because that is a branch of the Chamber of Commerce that they use to help businesses that have difficulty getting loans from banks, but yet they can present a sufficient bio, if you will, or business plan that says we are viable, this is what we want to accomplish, and even though the bank wouldn't give us the money, maybe you will, and that has been extremely successful.
It's been very successful.
And Coastal Community Capital manages that very well and monitors it very well.
Yes, and they've been able to give reports on how that is all in the follow-up on their grants. So
basically, what they're saying is they want to include the Barnstable County Economic Development Council in a regional collaboration with the goal of coordinating economic development across the region, and that whereas we have partnered in the past on intermittent projects, that the Cape Cod, our EDC, serving as an advisory role and lead advisor to the SEDS project, and as a Cape and Islands license plate program administrator for the county, acknowledge that our role is to build macroeconomic infrastructure, and agrees then to coordinate with the Chamber and other named collaborators in fiscal year 2012. Will send a representative to the regular meetings of the REDO collaborators, will advise in the implementation of an annual scope of services that they mutually agree upon, and then provide letters of support, web links, and other systemic support upon request.
Right, and there is a potential grant that's available, and it will go to the Cape Cod Chamber. Yeah, it will go to them, and they really have to. I mean, the requirement is that they have to collaborate. So I think that this is all good, and I am in favor of signing it.
And this is just another step in the process of collaboration. This could really evolve into something else.
Right. We're not sure what will happen after this fiscal year.
I just had one question, because the MOU that was sent by the Chamber of Commerce had a reporting piece, and the EDC does not have a reporting piece in there, and I think it's important that as part of any contract or MOU, that there be some device in which they would receive.
Let's look at the language.
The language that the Chamber used, report out in a consolidated statement of accomplishments, any job creation or retention statistics achieved through county services. Now, there might be an argument that says that economic development is not directly a job creation device, and that as part of government, our responsibility is to support economic development that is more directed towards infrastructure and let's say, and what I would call a broader picture. But nevertheless, I believe that there should be some language, perhaps a line that says that they have some responsibility of reporting back on a regular basis as to what happened, without us having to initiate that request. So other than that, that would be the only comment that I would have, because I think that we have some responsibility of identifying, we are putting some level of accountability in any MOU that we come in with a public partnership.
Well, I would agree that we could, that there would be a statement that we would report out in a consolidated statement of accomplishments, but I wouldn't make it specific related to job creation.
I'm not suggesting.
Because that's
right.
It's just an annual report. You want an annual report.
Yeah, just on how it's going. I mean, whether it's successful or not, we need to know.
I would suggest two, although it's a little bit late in the game for maybe the first one. First one is, what do you plan on doing for the year? And then the second would be, how did you meet your objectives? What did you do?
Yeah, well, I think that once the partnership, we can just ask our EDC to come before us and say, give us what's going on. So I think that that's already a given, that they're available to us as far as.
I find it's very useful to have something specific that that makes perhaps an arbitrary sounding, but nevertheless something that there's an understanding that there is an expectation of reporting with regard to this.
Okay.
It's just my opinion. You'd have to tell me whether or not you support it.
My only question is, the ship has sort of sailed on this, is what does the redo designation mean? What does that, I think it makes you eligible for the grants that you guys mentioned.
Right.
And I would ask, and maybe we can just find out who the other seven redos are. Are they public entities, or are they mostly chambers of commerce?
I think,
I don't know the answer.
I think for next year, they may have it may go out to bid. They may ask for an RFQ or an RFP for the redo money. So that may be something that we may want to work on together.
Yeah.
The chamber and our EDC is to maybe file a joint RFP if in fact that's what the state decides to do. We don't even know yet.
Designation ever. You know what I mean? Is the chamber the permanent redo designee or what?
Well, I think that is up. I think that is going. That is not permanent yet. This is the first that was my understanding, that can all come into question once this year is over. So, is there like a language that you want to place
Well, I
in
just
there?
want to have something that, that supports the idea of accountability.
So you want a fourth bullet that just says,
Yeah.
report annually on the progress made.
To the commissioners of the redo.
Yeah, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll add some language and
Okay.
So
send it
with
over
that,
to Dave Willard.
so with
Yes.
that change, I would entertain a motion to support it.
I'll move
Dave
it.
Willard and Wendy.
And Wendy.
And Wendy, yes. And I second that.
No, did somebody make the motion?
I did.
Okay.
Oh, and I second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Done.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the summary of actions. Do any of you have any questions with regard to that? Okay, I have, do you have a question?
No,
Okay, I
not
have a
on
question on
this
number 19. I don't get the part of second low bidder for item 7.
Sorry, Bill, I don't have that in front of me. Can you just tell me what it is?
It's number 19, to award the
Rafferty
bid to
Industries.
Rafferty Industries as the second low bidder for item 7.
For some reason, the lowest bidder was rejected for whatever reason that happened to be. There's probably an explanation in there.
Well, is this for the county property?
For Rafferty Industries? No, it
No,
sounds
no,
like we're
the
buying
paving, it says
something.
paving joints. Where is that?
Oh, they're paving something, yes.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, what exactly it is, it will tell you in here. I don't know exactly what it is they're paving.
Toward the end.
For full disclosure, I'd just like you to know that my maiden name is Rafferty, and there's no relation here.
Oh,
Yes, they're not related.
That was my first thought.
I know. It was my first thought. I'm like, what's Rafferty doing in there?
I didn't do it.
Okay, yeah, I didn't do
well,
it.
I would fully
Well, I
expect
didn't think
that
you were
if
in the
it
paving
was-
business.
Yeah, I know.
When we
I
were
wish.
your relatives, you would have said in the interest of full disclosure.
Not that far back.
Purchasing. Time sheets. Let's be up to time sheets.
While you're looking at that, Bill, can I ask, Lou came in and, actually, he looks pretty good. He says he's not feeling so good, but he asked that you would authorize the county to provide $100 for the maquette of the Mercy Otis Warren statue that we give to the winner of the Mercy Otis Warren Women of the Year. We've done this in the past.
That's a traditional thing.
Isn't that like an annual expense we have?
It's an annual expense, yeah.
So I will move that we do that.
Second.
Okay, is there a second?
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Thank you very much. Okay, you can tell.
So I move that we accept the summary of items and,
I would
Was
support
there-
that except for that one until I get some.
okay.
We can go ahead on the other one, I guess.
That one may not require a vote, Bill. It may just be to sign it.
It's
On
a
number
vote to
19.
award a bid.
Oh, then you do have to vote. Well, I do have another
For item
thing
number
while we're
7.
waiting for Bill. I don't know if you want to talk about this a little bit. I have this is drafted by Elise from Representative Turner's office. This is in support of Representative Turner's bill on the CMed funding
yes.
piece. It would allow basically a charge on the ambulance service by the towns to fund a CMed program. We had a meeting on that at the sheriff's office on Friday. This would not change federal law, so it wouldn't make Medicare or Medicaid covered runs subject to this fee, but it would any other private ambulance service runs.
Oh, this is a joint purchase.
Just to try to come up with some funding for the CMed program. The sheriff actually made an excellent presentation. He had a very good slide presentation that identified how all of the CMed areas are covered in the state. I think there's 7 or 8 or 9, I think 7 then. And he identified what the costs are, and the net costs for the Barnstable County CMed is about $450,000. So that's really what they're trying to cover in terms of costs.
I think they pointed out too that in some of the other regions, those costs are borne by the hospitals. Like for instance, in the region, Plymouth County, Bristol County, Jordan Hospital contributes.
Yeah, the hospital had a contribution. The ambulance services had a contribution of some way, shape, or form, and there was one third one which I just can't remember.
But the Mike Jones was there from Cape Cod Healthcare, and we asked him about that. How do the hospitals get reimbursed? And the answer is they don't.
You know,
So the hospitals that are paying for that are just paying for it, but they're not getting any reimbursement from anywhere.
Right.
There is no designated source of funds for CMED. It's just not there. The other part of the discussion had to do with the Department of Public Safety versus the Department of Public Health, because ambulances come under Department of Public Health, and yet the 911 services come under Public Safety. And the idea was, why can't it all be merged under public safety? But then you have the medical, the health issues, and all of that that come under Department of Public Health.
although there, because of the fee on phone service, there seems to be some funding available for the 911 and the dispatch.
Verizon.
Yeah, exactly. And if you could get the CMED piece out from under public health and under public safety, might be eligible for that type of funding. So that was one of the things they talked about maybe looking at.
And Sarah Peak and Dave Vieira, two of the state reps who were there, are going to take this back to the State House and see what kind of legislation they might be able to construct that would provide a recurring revenue source for CMED, because you can't just do it 1 year at a time. There has to be some kind of recurring source for this. And there is no way to raise the funds, because the federal government will not allow anyone to attach an additional charge to an ambulance bill and expect that Medicare would pay for it, because they won't. So that was one of the thoughts. Well, we'll add $10 to every ambulance run, and then Medicare would pick it up. You can't do that. And then if you attempted to add a $10 charge on an ambulance run, then Medicare would pay its portion, but then each town would have to bill out to the individual who used the ambulance that fee, and then you'd have to collect secondary fees, and that's really labor intensive for the town, so they can't do it.
Right.
So there has to be some sort of funding to do that. And Verizon does have a significant, what is it, like $800,000, I think, that the sheriff gets through Verizon to take care of all the dispatch.
It's a big number.
It's a big number, but it doesn't really cover the CMED part of it. It covers the 911 part.
It's not just Verizon, it's any phone.
Any phone, yeah. And then there's we all pay on our phone service so much each month, and that goes to fund that 911. So it's complex and it's not easy. So hopefully with Cleon's legislation and Sarah and Dave Vieira and I'm sure Cleon working together, and with the Senate President's office, to try to come up with some kind of funding. And actually, I think the sheriff said it came to, what was it, something like $356,000 is what he really needed in his budget to pick up this piece of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it's not a huge amount of money, but
it makes
in
a
the
difference.
context of today and no funding, it is a lot of money.
So everybody, you've worked on this legislation and some of the language.
Well, the people who were there were most of the chiefs, fire chiefs from all the different towns, and then some state legislators, Cape Cod Healthcare, and we were there, and the sheriff and his deputy were there, and I think we all agreed that that was the course of action that we would take, and we all agreed to support Cleon's bill if it goes anywhere.
All right, so we
need to vote of support and send a
we have to have
letter.
a motion to accept this and
I think to
sign.
sign the letter of
Sign the-
support,
yeah.
that's to the Joint Committee on
Right.
Municipalities and Regional Government,
Well, I
I think.
move to sign the letter of
And I
support.
second.
Yeah.
Excuse me, is there, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? So it is a vote, thank you very much.
And then there were some misunderstandings because I know one of the state reps thought that because we have created an oversight committee for CMed, which is made up of myself and Mike Jones from Cape Cod Healthcare and Chief Russell from Sandwich, that we were engineering or responsible for obtaining the funding. But that wasn't the case at all. I said there's no point for us to meet if we don't have any funding, and we can't provide the funding. So we were looking to the legislature to do that. So they now know that it's their job to get the funding.
May I ask a question? What is CMed?
Oh, it's Centralized Medical Emergency Dispatch.
Okay.
So when
Thanks.
you're on an ambulance run, the ambulance patches in through the sheriff to the hospital. And so if you need,
Say you're having a heart attack.
yeah,
you
if
say-
they need some medical advice in the ambulance for your, they can patch you through to the hospital. And the beauty of it is there's a triage element to it. So if you have a relatively minor injury and you're patched through, but someone else needs to get through because they have a major problem, a heart attack or something, the sheriff's office will perform that triage function and say, well, I got to cut you off because I need to plug this other person in because it's a higher priority, that type of thing.
So when you dial 911, that call goes to the sheriff's office,
Okay.
the sheriff's dispatch center. And they have, what, 12 or how many, 8 or 10
Yeah,
dispatchers
there's like
there that
4 on duty
dispatch
at all times. And so
the ambulances all over the Cape. And so they have sometimes 40 ambulances at the sometimes at the same
All
time.
at the same time.
Yes, can be moving.
Yeah.
And then each ambulance, for the most part, has critical medical equipment on the ambulance so that they can monitor the patient, and they then can talk directly to the physicians and nurses in the emergency room. So they can let the hospital know as they monitor the patient on the ride what physical occurrences are going on with the patient, and keep the emergency room prepared so that when the patient does arrive, they're ready to do whatever they need to do to immediately begin whatever actions have to be taken. And it's a very sophisticated system, and it works very well. And I'm sure it saves a lot of lives.
Yeah, it has to, because there's no stabilization between Provincetown and Hyannis, so there needs to be some communication in that
Right.
link, coming up.
And as Mark said too, if a certain patient's condition might preempt someone else who maybe is going with a broken leg or something, then that person would then take priority, and they can override that.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Thank
You're welcome.
to go back to your vote, Bill, are you set? Did you get your number 19 explained?
Yes, they did. It's a joint
purchase.
joint purchase, and the towns are responsible for the payment of it. We were operating as an agent with regard to that.
Okay,
Just
so
want to make sure it wasn't our bid.
with that, I move the summary of items.
All those is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any any abstentions, okay, thank you, there's a vote.
I just want to make note, I was handed this as we were walking in, that local schools win National Energy Education Development Project 2011 Youth Awards for Energy Achievement. And several Cape schools participated in the Cape Light Compact's Energy Education Program have been honored with a Youth Award for Energy Achievement by the National Energy Education Development Project. And this is a...
That's need.
It's need, yes, and we need more bright people looking at energy solutions. But this is a a nationwide contest. We had a contest done on the state level. The state award, those who won the state award were put into the mix of this, and from that there were 60 projects from across the nation picked. And guess what? There are 4 from Cape Cod.
And
That
please,
won.
please
Let
share
me-
with us. Please
Yes,
share with
yes.
us.
Who are they?
You've
Or the
done the
state
tease now.
elementary,
Let's get
the
in there.
state elementary. So the Youth Award, the 2011 Need Youth Award for Energy Achievement winners. On the state elementary level winner was Eastham Elementary Green Energy Army.
Well,
I like that.
That's a
It's led
repeat, too.
by Maggie Brown, who is their advisor.
They have a great
The
teacher for
National
that.
and State Special Project Category Project of the Year was won by Harwich Community Learning Center, headed by Sally Andriola, who is their advisor. And the state runners-up were Nauset Regional High School's Green Team, headed by Valerie Bell,
Valerie.
and Cape Cod Academy,
You know, Valerie lived
led
in
by
Howard.
Chris Kelly.
Notice you have that highlighted.
Yes, well, no, somebody highlighted it for me because they
For
knew
you.
my child went there. So, but she is not part of this, unfortunately. She's graduating, so I can't give her kudos. I'm not doing this just for her, but I will do it for Cape Cod Academy,
You're entitled.
and which is an excellent school. So it is a nonprofit organization that is in all 50 states, and they developed this innovative, materials and implemented programs for kids to do these projects. So I think that we should congratulate all of the winners and those hardworking students and their advisors. And they were assisted by the Cape Light Compact for all of their, giving them guidance and information and that sort of thing to help them be successful. So congratulations to our youth and to those who won and those who did not, but put in hard work. It is work that's worthy and good. So
Wonderful.
Well,
I would mention
that's
at
pretty
East End
cool.
Elementary, we have one of our PV systems on East End Elementary.
Yes.
And they're using the energy directly in the school.
into the school. That's excellent. Well, congratulations. I'm happy
Anything
that's a good
else
thing.
that,
Yeah.
that are
While we're on the
great?
topic of youth, one of the things that when Dr. Francis was here doing that study with the Chamber on the demographics of the Cape, and the fact that so many young people are leaving the Cape, they're not staying because they can't get jobs, they can't live here, it's too expensive. One of the things that came out of the summit yesterday was because of Open Cape, that it not only will create jobs, but it will also be an incentive for young people to stay here. Because the young people are the ones that are so computer knowledgeable and really into internet and Facebook and all of those, Twitter and whatnot, that the idea of being able to live and work here would be much more appealing to them when that broadband network goes through. And the other piece of that, of course, was, and we were talking about jobs, that how the whole dynamic with jobs is changing. And the guy, I can't think of his name.
His
he was
name
the
was-
Italian guy from ICF
ICF,
company.
yeah.
Oh, Zaccarelli?
His name was Lou Zaccarelli.
Yeah,
Zaccarelli. He was very good.
He was, well, they showed pictures of office buildings. That 50% of the office buildings in cities now are going to be unoccupied because because the whole idea is you don't drive to work, the work comes to you. And more people are working at home or they're working in co-office buildings
Right.
where individuals share space because they're all working for different companies, either nationwide or around the world. They're not driving to work anymore. And this broadband is going to have that same effect on the Cape.
Right.
And that people will not have to drive off the Cape. So maybe there won't be so many cars going over the bridge anymore.
Well, we're certainly
people-
we're certainly trying to get the Department of Transportation in the state to understand that public transportation is something that we should have for the 40,000 people that live in the Upper Cape. And hopefully at the next meeting in June, the MPO will have the votes and have a quorum so we can get that underway.
One other,
Mr. Chairman, we're down to 1 minute on this tape.
So you want to do a tape
Why don't you
change?
Make a
it?
change.
yeah, because we want to talk
All right,
more.
so I had every intention of getting there. And
As we all know, we appointed Rob O'Leary and Henri Rauschenbach to co-chair our committee on our special commission on county government.
Yeah.
Governance.
What
Yeah.
happened
On
to
governance, and so we've been getting a lot of questions about where is it up and running yet, and Mark can give us a report on that.
I just
right?
heard from Rob via email yesterday. He's looked over the charge that we drafted, and he's fine with that. I'd not quite heard from Henri, so it wasn't clear from Rob's email whether he and Henri were okay with it. So I said to Rob, and my response that the next step is that we need to identify the people who will be serving on the committee, so.
But that is
that's
up
what
to them
he's-
to decide.
Yeah, exactly. I said to Rob, it's now your next step is to identify who's going to be on this thing.
Right.
So
Well, actually.
I haven't made any suggestions yet.
He's going to make a
So
recommendation, which we will, to review.
you will appoint the members. That's correct.
Yeah.
So well, we are working on that. He's fine with the charge. I will double check with Henri, make sure Henri's okay with what we've written for the charge.
Henri just had his second child,
Maybe that's why.
baby, so I think he's been
He's
up
probably
all
busy.
night.
Yeah. He's busy.
Your fourth child is second.
Yeah, I know.
Well, anyway, enough of that, but
Yes.
do you have anything else for us?
The only thing is I gave you my report, and there were only, besides the cement thing, there were two other things on it. One, and I don't know if Lev had talked about this the other day when he was here. We, in association with Mass Rides, the county is sponsoring the New Ride program. We had our senior staff meeting on Monday, and a gentleman from Mass Rides was here to tell us about the New Ride program. Basically, the New Ride program encourages participants to take greener trips, either by walking or biking or carpooling, and it rewards them two ways. It gives them points that they can then use for discounts at restaurants or stores or those types of things that are participating in the program. And it also tells them exactly what they're saving, either what they're saving in terms of dollars or in terms of tons of carbon emitted and those types of things. So you can sign up, anybody can sign up for New Rides by visiting commute.com/New Ride. So that's something that we're trying to encourage people to carpool and take alternative trips. Of course, next week is bike week,
That's right.
and then Lev will be talking to us on June 1st about Smart Transportation Week, and that's in June. And then I just wanted to let you know I received an invitation from the town of Bourne. Bourne is announcing the completion of its residential recycling center. They're going to hold an open house at the Integrated Solid Waste Management Facility on MacArthur Boulevard. The open house is going to be May 21st from 10 to 2, and they will have refreshments. They'll have a tour of the entire facility and a rededication of the Dorothy Wilson Swap Shop. And of course, the public is invited to that.
Swap shop.
Yeah,
So
swap
we'll
shop.
jump on Saturday, all right. Okay, did any of you have anything else you wanted to add for your activity?
I do want to just acknowledge something and state something. You know, we did receive comment this morning on CVEC and various other things. There was an article in the paper, in my view, yesterday that sort of outlined the Brewster situation in a sense. And we have had requests from the public to review this. And number one, those resolutions that Mr. Bibler put forward to us today, I did just receive. I have not had, we have been in the summit for 2 days. I did not get home until very late last night because I was at the selectmen's meeting, and I am honest to say I did not yet read them, and I will read them. And I do think that that discussion needs to be had among us, and I'm not saying that it's today, but I just think that we need some clarity on different rules. So I just want to let the public be assured that we're just not avoiding those questions or skirting them under the table. I think that we will address them, and they will be then addressed in public, if we may do that in the next week or so. So I would like to be able to
Are you
have that
suggesting
discussion.
that be an agenda item?
I think it could be an agenda item, and I'm not sure
It could
if
be,
I
or it
think
is.
it is an agenda item, but I think that some of that discussion may fall into the realm of executive session, and I think that I would rather put it on the agenda as executive session, and under personnel, only because we'll be looking at our internal rules and that.
I wouldn't disagree. The vote that was taken by the civic board was in executive session, so in terms of detail, we wouldn't be able to talk about it in
Yes,
anything
so
else.
I would like to schedule an executive session for
Well,
next week.
they couldn't talk about it with us either, because we're not part of the group.
I
So we're
understand.
not privy to even the executive session minutes of CVAC until they release them.
But we could have
Right.
maybe a little bit more detail
How
without
could we get more detail if
disclosing.
it was items that were discussed in executive session? I
Right.
don't understand that.
No,
It's a bit of a,
It's a-
well,
No,
I'm not, this is not,
that's
this is not to be, this is just to get a point of clarity, and I'm just asking that I would prefer it to be in an executive session.
No, I understand your request, but what I'm searching for is, what kind of clarity are you looking for?
well, I remember we talked, Bill, about doing a CLC, CVAC kind of overview, just to kind of refresh. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? And then, and I'd like to schedule that. Actually, that was my next thing, is kind of the upcoming meetings. Next week, I'm potentially not here. Depends on when I have a Treasurers Association meeting, then I'm going to. So it depends on when you schedule this. And next week at 2 o'clock, I have to be at the Assembly because they're doing their public hearing on the proposed supplemental ordinance.
Yes.
So, next week I'm trying to get a Lyme disease update. Brenda Bolin wanted to come in and talk about a Lyme disease update. So I'm trying to schedule that for next Wednesday. When would you like to start?
I
would
would
like to do it
suggest that
sooner
we
than
do
later.
that after the budget is finished. I believe that our prime responsibility is to see how the budget comes out, and I would suggest that if it is going to be an agenda item, it'd be at a time when we can devote, let's say, the attention that it deserves. But I would also suggest that since we had scheduled an overview of Cape Light Compact and the Cape and Vineyard Electric Co-op, it would be useful to have that information prior to discussing roles with regard to individual participation.
Then that's fine, if you would like to do it in that manner, in that fashion, that is fine with me, but I just think that it's something that we should put on the agenda sooner than later. It's just that I would like to be able to feel informed totally in answering questions to the public, that I don't feel totally comfortable with my base of knowledge of where we are. I feel very comfortable with other departments and how our role interacts with them. I just want to have that clear.
But I think we talked about the fact that we need to, for ourselves, review the Articles of Incorporation, both for the Cape Light Compact and for CVAC. We need to be familiar with how these
So we would like
organizations
copies of those.
and their relationship to the county, or where there is no relationship
Yes.
to the county, such as with CVAC, because they're created under statute. And I think what we need to really understand is what the implications of those Articles of Incorporation mean for us as county commissioners in terms of our executive authority over certain activities within the county. So we need to be clear about that. Then we also need to, I think, meet with counsel, because some of this is pending litigation, I believe. Maybe not, maybe it is. So we should look to see how much of any of this is pending litigation, and if it is, that then lends itself to executive session. So I think what we need to do is maybe sit down with Mark, perhaps, and actually outline these issues. What has to be an executive session has to be, if it's part of the open meeting law, and what should be in open session that is educational, not only, and informational perhaps, not only for us, but for the general public as well. So, and I think and I'd be happy to sit with you at any time, today, tomorrow, next, whenever, to work out how we can address these issues and in the format and form that is appropriate for the issue, and do it as soon as possible. I don't think we can delay some of this too much.
Right.
I think, but
Could I just, are you saying that next week you could not do that
I
presentation?
would not want to do it next week. No.
Okay.
The first open session you next have is the 25th.
So that's a week after next?
the week after next.
Can we do something?
I
Can
could
we-
say, from my perspective, it's important to have other people there.
Yes.
See that council?
Yep.
Perhaps Bob Troy,
Yes.
Maggie. We might want CLC representatives. We might want other CVAC representatives.
This
there.
could be a long.
It's not a small meeting, right?
Right,
You
right.
know,
And that's why I suggest that we wait until after the budget is done, so we can devote
Well, the
time
budget
to it.
is done on the 16th.
the budget's done next.
Next week.
They're taking a vote.
So it would be the week after that.
So we're just talking.
If I could get all
Yes.
those people on the
I'm also-
25th.
If they,
Yeah.
if all those people cannot be available on a Wednesday, then I would make a motion to schedule this on a day that they can be available. It does not have to be a Wednesday.
And that would be fine.
And that,
Yeah.
as long as we have
Special
time to
meeting,
post
yeah,
it.
that's fine.
I think having a special meeting is probably a good idea.
Yeah.
Because we still have our regular business to take care of. And it would probably be more appropriate to do it on a different day.
Right, and if we could do it even before the 25th, between the budget and the 25th, then that would be
Let me see if just so I understand what, you know, what we're doing here. Okay. It's my understanding that we will have let's say, an overview with regard to the Cape Light Compact and the Cape and Vineyard Electric Co-op with regard to roles and responsibilities and
Don't go any farther, Bill. Put a
that's
period
fine,
there.
that's perfect.
An overview. Yeah. Maggie
Yeah.
has a presentation that she's delivered umpteen times. That clearly can be an open session. No question.
Right,
Okay.
and
After
that
that,
relationship with the
excuse me.
CVAC and all of that can all be put
Yeah.
out there.
After that, then, these other items that that we've been discussing with regard to an understanding of any special relationships that are involved, then that would be something that we would have available counsel from CVAC, Cape Light Compact, as well as representatives. And I would remind both of you that I am the chair of the Cape Light Compact.
Yes, we know that.
Okay, so I'll pass that on, that there's some interest in having participation from other members of the Cape Light Compact at this, whenever we
So we
schedule
just
a
got to come up
session.
with a date. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Come up with a date.
And we will try to pursue a date.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
we're tentatively looking at this.
Council's usually the hardest to get.
Okay,
so
and then we are open to the idea of having a special meeting and a special meeting date for this.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Is there anything else on this item?
No,
Yes.
other than I would just request copies of the articles of incorporation
Yeah, we
and
could
that sort of
pull
thing, if you could
those.
do that
They're
for
all
us.
on the website, but we'll pull them all.
If they're all on the website, then I'll start there, but
Do you have
I did want
anything
to say
else?
start time for next week. We didn't come up with one.
what is our start time for next week?
Oh, there's an assembly meeting next week.
It's at 2
Yeah.
o'clock. I won't be here in the morning. That's when the charge meetings. If you want to start at noon, I might be able to be back by noon. Or do you want to start at just 1 o'clock? Like I said, I'm trying to get the line.
Yeah,
The assembly's meeting at 2?
There's a hearing at 2.
It's two, it's a public hearing on the budget, so
Which I
I'd like to
think
be,
we
yeah,
should
we all
be
have to
there
be
for
there.
that.
It's
so.
not on the budget. It's on the supplemental. I think they're done on the budget. I don't think.
Yeah, I believe they, I
What's-
think
what's-
that they recommended to present the budget to the whole
As is.
assembly
Yeah,
as
presented.
is, not with any specific recommendation, and allow the assembly
So-
as a committee of the whole to deal with the
exactly
budget.
right.
So that will be discussed at the assembly meeting at 4 o'clock on next Wednesday. So if your intention is to go to
Assembly at 2.
Assembly 2, we had been invited to go to the dedication of the Cape Cod RTA shuttle at 3 o'clock down in Provincetown, which I don't think we'd be able to make. But anyway, the invitation was offered to us. Did you have anything else as far as activities?
I had something I
Yes,
wanted
go
to
ahead.
bring up. I brought this up this morning, but this is how thinking evolves as issues evolve and so forth. Really being there for 2 days on this Smarter Cape Cod Summit, I think there was a lot of good information that really helped all of the people there to look at everything that's occurring on the Cape, the things that are good and the things that need work. And when we talk about our energy policy, for one thing, I think, well, we talked about wastewater too, because wastewater has its groups of people who are for certain things and others who are against certain things. We have issues with some towns who want more information. They don't agree with the model. They want to. They may be, like the request from Orleans and some of the other towns signed on
When it comes to wastewater.
to engage the National Academy of Sciences in attempting to revalidate the model, if you will. So there are differing opinions, and there are, and the question is, how do you deal with it? When it comes to energy policy, we have much the same situation. We have some groups of people who are opposed to certain aspects of the energy policy, such as wind turbines, and then there are those who are for it. And then there are pieces of the energy policy that everyone supports to a certain degree. And I think as a regional government that we need to look at the concerns that our community has about our policies, about energy policies. I shouldn't say ours. They are ours in terms of the compact and CVAC, but they are local in terms of the towns. Towns have energy policies. And a lot of towns have energy committees. I live in a town that has an energy committee that is very active and very vocal and is very responsive to renewable energy. And I think as a county we are very responsible to renewable energy. And I think that if we're going to make energy policy work, because I don't believe that you can create policy based on bias. No matter which side of the spectrum the bias is, you can't create and develop a public policy when you have bias. And you can't create the policy based on bias, nor can you necessarily create it on where there is no bias. So I think what we need to do is to begin to build consensus. What is our energy? How can we as a regional government help our communities create their public policy on energy around consensus? Now that is so easy to say, but it is very hard to do.
Right.
Because people have to be willing to come to the table and say, I feel strongly about this, and somebody else, I feel strongly about that. But somewhere in the middle, there is a middle ground. And how do we get communities to come together in consensus? So I really believe very strongly in this. I'm a veteran of the MMR. Some of you may be veterans of the MMR too. Back in the late 80s, when the towns surrounding the base were polluted and the wells were polluted because of all the activities on the MMR over the years, you know, during World War II and after World War II, people's public water wells were contaminated because of that. So it was getting the military to realize, you know, that they were the problem. And they had to be willing to accept the fact that they were a problem, and they had to do something about it, and it took years. But in the end, it was accomplished through consensus. The military finally agreed that they had to step to the table, admit to the fact that actually they had, in fact, created these problems, and they had to then put the money behind it. And the money is always the big issue, too. And that's why I love that phrase, the cost of ownership. You know, whether if it's wind or whether it's wastewater or water, whatever it is, there is a cost to ownership. And people have to realize that they have to accept that fact. Right. So I think that we should, in our discussions, as we move forward on wind and on water and wastewater, really think about building consensus around these public policy issues that people will be comfortable with and feel if they're going to live here, then they need to be comfortable with the policies that they have helped create to make this a better place. Right. I get off my soapbox, right. But
I can only hope that everyone,
I think where we need to
will
go.
participate in, you know, in that.
Everybody doesn't,
because
but
everybody
the people
has
who
to
care and the people who want to have a say are going to be there. Because that's the way it is. And we want to get everybody to come, people on every side of the issue, to come and participate, be a willing participant and willing to say, you know, I want to live here and I have to understand that I may have to give up a little bit here or a little bit there. Everybody's going to have to give up something. But in the end, we're going to have a public policy that we could all work with.
I thought that at today's, water plant.
And that's because I worked 2 shifts yesterday. That's why I can say
that the Water Protection Collaborative did speak about the importance of making some progress with regard to coming up with verifiable scientific information And at that point, with those facts in hand, that might be an appropriate place, as far as that particular item, might be an appropriate place to begin to find out how do you develop consensus around the things that we know. And I think that that would
That's
probably
right.
apply to all of the other items that you're talking about. But I certainly, I was taken by a talk that was given by someone, I guess it was Zaccarelli yesterday, who said that there was a town manager in Dublin, Ohio, who, instead of waiting for the strategic plan, and I have issues with strategic plans that have an arbitrary 5-year...
He made a decision.
You made a decision, because in many cases, we talk about a strategic plan that has a life beyond your term, and as a result, you can basically put off any responsibility for doing anything during
Right,
your
to
term,
the next
because
people.
we've got that 5 years. So I think that his making a decision with regard to doing things should be the kind of incentive to provide leadership with regard to these things. And as we find out facts, I think that would be the point where our leadership could perhaps...
We're going to have to make hard choices and decisions.
Well, and we also have to separate myths from facts.
Right.
You know, that's another thing I think that we have to do through this whole process is separate myths from facts.
And in following up on that, what he was saying was it's all about the communication, which is the
Yes.
communication and making sure it's clearly stated. And
Oh.
all right, so
So I wish you could have all been at this conference the last 2 days.
it was excellent. Yeah.
You would have loved that you are living here and you are part of all this,
Yeah.
truly.
It sounds
It was so
terrific.
Yeah,
good.
it was great.
300 people sitting there and just working together the whole 2 days.
Is
It
it
was-
an annual event? Yeah.
No, it was a one-time thing.
Well, what happened? It actually.
They're intending to have
It will be, yeah. I mean, several
Oh,
years
no.
ago, the Cape Cod Chamber had their summit, and that's when Peter Francis came down. And all of these organizations have their sort of annual meeting, and in many ways they have similar goals, but they're coming at it from different places. And this was over the last couple of years through the SEDS project of bringing these groups together. They started to see that, you know, their goals are similar and they're working more closely together. So instead of having all of these different annual summits all talking about the same thing as though they're the ones that are creating it, they realize that they're relying on each other for the success of it. So let's do it together.
Yeah.
And that was what really made it special because, you know, and I'll give credit to Paul and the Cape Cod Commission for bringing that SEDS project of not just writing it up and submitting it, but bringing in input and making it part of everyone's project. And that sort of that lent itself to that collaboration. But people were willing to go there, and and as Paul said today, people started to understand where their roles. We're all going to this goal. This is your role. This is my
didn't
role.
even know it
And once
before.
everybody knew their role, nobody was saying, wait a minute, I'm the big guy and that's my turf, because everyone's sharing the turf and they're all working on that goal. So it really has been a couple of years in the making, I think, but it was sort of the culmination of all of that effort.
Is there a video of this?
Yes, every part of it was
Yeah.
taped.
Well, they were
So
be
all-
archived, and you have access to
Yeah.
the Cape
And
Cod
it-
Commission webpage.
yeah, the Cape Cod Commission webpage will have it. I'm sure the Chamber will have it as well.
And the major concepts were, obviously collaboration was the major concept, but it was,
It was all about economic development.
interconnectedness.
Yeah.
You know, we are all interconnected on all of these issues in many ways. Intelligence, you know, you have to, this is like the Smarter Cape Cod and the intelligent community. What do intelligent communities do?
Yeah.
And the whole idea of smarter cities, and by cities, they don't just mean a city, they mean a community, they mean a university, anything where there is a group of people they refer to as a city. That's the IBM piece to it.
Well, in any case...
And it
I
all
think
did come
we
out
have
of
to-
the
we have to
Open
move
Cape. I mean,
along.
the Open Cape with the cable
Did
and
you
the
have anything else
broadband
to
will
offer?
allow these opportunities.
Did you- did you
And there's
have
many opportunities. How are we going to use this?
Did you have
Not
anything
just for
else?
schools, not just, but it's how are we going to use this fiber optic to maximize our quality of life and our economic development here on the Cape. And that was really, so it was around the Open Cape, but it was really all of the ideas, you know, coming from what is working around the world, around the country, and how it can work here even better. But the other side of it is, I think that we're ahead of the curve on most communities. So we're doing very well.
So please, please access that. Did you have anything else?
Very inspiring.
Nothing else.
See, I had the...
I'm wearing myself out talking
The
about
AmeriCorps board went through a selection process, choosing projects for next year. Congressman Keating had a Veterans Outreach Day on Saturday, which was very well attended. I would say that it was several hundred people that were there. That came in and out. And then Monday there was an Arbor Day over at Orleans Elementary School, and the kids were all very enthusiastic, and they planted trees and stuff. It was very nice. Okay, I have nothing else.
Nothing else.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks.